in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're not in Nevada. It's on the internet. Hey, everybody, this is the Untethered podcast with Mike Fagan, Derek Subatiki, Matt Roth, Ian Kidd, and McKinley Noble. Let's go.
All right, we got some of that. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Untethered MMA on Fight Fans Radio. It is July 11, 2013. If you want to reach the show, you can, of course, chat in the Hangout if you're cool enough, or if you want to reach us on Twitter, you can reach me at It's Mike Fagan. You can reach Derek at Untethered Subo. And you can reach Matt at MattRoth512. Matt, when I told you to go, I guess there's actually like a 10-second delay before it goes live, so about half of that got in.
Oh, so they got like the MGM Grand Garden Arena part?
Yeah, it's actually almost exactly where they got you in.
That's fine. We just missed the humming before and the Bruce Buffer. It was a good Bruce Buffer.
That was a pretty good Bruce Buffer, right?
No objections.
It wasn't bad.
Has he busted yet?
Opera.
I follow him on Twitter, and he's talking about it. He's doubling up to like half of what you start with in the main event. Has he busted yet, or is he still hanging in there?
He's still in there.
He loves his ace-king, boy. I fucking hate playing with the guy. Just get ace-king and shove. That's Bruce Buffer. Fucking bullshit.
How was your weekend, guys? I'll start with you, Derek.
Nothing bad happened. Watched the fights. That was fun. Going to talk about those here in a little bit. Really, every day after that has just been watching the community collectively react and process this information. And it's been disgusting, and it's made me want to puke. So other than that, that part of the weekend sucked. The actual watching of a really, really fun fight card, I loved it.
And what about you, Matt? I know you've been up in Jersey for the last few days.
Yeah, I'm here in Jersey until the 27th. And I watched the fights and then stayed awake because asshole me books flights at 5 in the morning.
I was actually up in Milwaukee for the weekend, basically drinking a lot of beer and eating cheese. Not drinking cheese, almost. And then we watched the fight up there, which we'll get right into. Like I said, I was in a bar, and it was a pretty good environment for the show. During the main event, obviously, things got a little more electric in there. And obviously, by the time Anderson started taunting in the first round up until the knockout, it got pretty heated in there. And then, of course, Weidman lands the left hook, heard around the world. And, I literally, a lot of people say they had their jaw dropped. My jaw was literally hanging from my mouth for a good 5 minutes.
I was so happy because here's the thing. Only person on this show that gave Chris Weidman a shot. Only person on this show who said that Chris Weidman was walking away with the belt. Only person on this show that said Chris Weidman is America. I said that.
The only person who gets hard when he hears Bruce Springsteen. The only fucking New Jersey mark on the show. Your geography played a great role into that pick, Roth, and congrats to you for it. It was a hell of a night for the fucking Garden State, which is the most ironic name in the history of fucking state names, because there ain't no fucking gardens. But hey, good for Chris Weidman, and you properly are giving credit to the victor instead of saying, "Oh, Anderson Silva could have knocked him out whenever he wanted. He just didn't want to."
Fuck that taken away from that win.
That's all anybody's been doing, and I'm sick of it.
This is the biggest win of Chris Weidman's career, and the entire story afterwards is, oh well, Anderson fucked around, and Anderson lost it. Chris didn't beat him. If you watch that ending sequence, I downloaded the fights and I watched it over and over and over again.
I'm sorry. You what now?
I downloaded it on UFC.com.
Of course. Of course.
I paid to download it, and I watched it over and over again. And Chris sets it up perfectly. Anderson has gotten away with it with head movement that doesn't work in boxing, because boxing people double up punches instead of in MMA where you just do 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Chris doubled up the right hand. Anderson was leaning back. His hips were so far back. He was on the balls of his feet. And Chris lands a beautiful left hook. It would happen to anybody, but Anderson was leaning into the power hand. Gets dropped. I thought at first when it was live, I thought it was Anderson playing around. And then 15 murder punches on the ground, and it was obvious that Anderson Silva was out. Well, you can't take that away from Chris Weidman. He beat Anderson without cheating. He didn't grab the fence. He didn't grab the shorts. No bullshit. He beat the guy fair and square and beat him in the most devastating fashion you could beat somebody.
Yeah, I actually knew right away once he landed that punch, and the way Anderson went down, it was not something that you could replicate on purpose. Just when you go totally limp like that. But it was still just even thinking about it now, it's still almost hard to believe that it actually happened.
No, I can understand that, and obviously, Anderson's always been known to have a really good chin. But I mean, you watch that fight, and Chris was letting Anderson punch him in the face too. Like, legitimately put his head down, took a punch to the forehead, and just and smiled and kept going forward. Like that, the big takeaway should be how impressive Chris Weidman is, not that Anderson Silva lost the fight. And did Anderson play around? Yeah, but if we're being honest, Anderson's played around with everybody. It was bound to happen.
Derek, I want to let you talk in a second here, but I actually thought I just watched Anderson's video blog. For the sequence after the fight, and it was my first look at some of the press conference, and I thought Dana actually had probably almost the best encapsulation of the fight, where he was saying, Anderson does this to all these guys, he tries to get in their heads. Weidman was able to keep himself composed, fight back, and did what no one else could do, and you have to give Weidman credit for that.
Yeah. The reaction to this, it's not surprising from people refusing to kind of emotionally process something. You kind of saw the same thing with Fedor. Just, what was he thinking diving into Where Doom's triangle? That was such a terrible idea. Why would you even play in somebody's guard? When Fedor made a living saying, hey, look at your strength. Fuck you. I'm going to beat you at it with no fear whatsoever of the consequences. That was Anderson Silva in there. It was a 38-year-old version of him, and we don't know what changed, especially somebody like that and kind of a Roy Jones. That parallel works too with their fighting styles as far as relying on athleticism and quickness. There are highlights of Muhammad Ali doing the same thing as well with his hands down. So there's a precedent for what Anderson Silva's actual game plan in the fight was, which was to bait him into making a mistake so we could counterpunch him. He's done it tons and tons and tons of times before. And at this point, it did not work because I would contend that Chris Weidman is the best middleweight that Anderson Silva has faced in a very, very long time, if not ever. If you go from 125 to 265, the entire gamut of men's MMA, you've got Demetrius Johnson, you've got Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo, we'll talk about him in a second, Benson Henderson, GSP, now Chris Weidman, John Jones, Cain Velasquez. Almost every single champion, with the possible exception of Jose Aldo, is the best wrestler in their division. And is somebody who came from a wrestling background, trained extensively in striking and jiu-jitsu and MMA, got good at those skills as opposed to just serviceable like a Mark Coleman or a Matt Hughes or somebody, and then took over the goddamn division because nobody can out-wrestle them and they're good enough at everything else. This is a natural evolution. It's not possible. A rematch could go either way. I don't think that Chris Weidman outclasses Anderson Silva or that Anderson Silva can't win because God knows he's got that one-punch power and the quickness to land it. But it's very possible that a 29-year-old Chris Weidman is better than a 38-year-old Anderson Silva in 2013. That could just be the way it is. And by treating it like Anderson Silva threw the fight away, wasn't interested, was tired of the belch, or whatever the hell else you want to say, it eliminates the possibility that Weidman could have won this fight in and of himself, and I think it's an incredibly disrespectful thing to the new champion, and he doesn't deserve it.
Before we talk about the rematch, you were talking about the reaction people had, and Sam Harris tweeted this. Sam Harris is someone I've talked about on the show. He's a philosopher and neuroscientist, but he's a big MMA fan. He's been into jiu-jitsu. And he tweeted something out the night of the day after the event, and I thought it kind of came true. He said, "If last night had been a debate about philosophy or religion, millions of Anderson Silva fans would still claim that he won." And I don't think people were claiming that he won, but people were basically claiming that
he didn't want to. He was disinterested. Either he was handing off the belt because he wants super fights and he wants to get paid more, which is ridiculous because he lost a bunch of money on Saturday night, as did the UFC, as did the champions of the two divisions surrounding his. So any kind of conspiracy angle or any kind, he 7 years, 16-0 in the UFC, I believe it was when it finally ended, or was it 17-0?
17.
I look at that as like a Joe DiMaggio, 56 games, never gonna get beaten. I don't think anyone will ever do that again. Jones would be close if it weren't for the Hamill fight, but now with the Hamill fight in there, he's gonna need like 6 or 7 in order to tie this. And
No,
GSP's
he's only. I think he's only like 4 or 5 away.
he's won 12 straight fights.
I think so. It's close to that.
No. You're nuts.
Not since the Hamill fight. He's won 12 fights in the UFC. The thing is this. I think it's pretty clear that the rematch, as you said, it's a total pick'em fight. But it's pretty clear that the 1 and 2 in that division are Anderson and Chris Weidman. And what I said on last Thursday is that you had the best case scenario for a torch passing moment and pass the torch in the division. I was happy when Anderson said, "I'm not interested in the rematch," because you have the chance to go ahead and just say, "Look, Chris is now the champion. Chris is now the face of the division. I'm going to do these super fights. I'm still interested in seeing Anderson versus John Jones. I'm still interested in seeing Anderson versus GSP. That doesn't change. This loss doesn't change that."
Now that he's lost a fight, maybe he can get a title shot in another fucking division that he's never fought in.
But he's fought in those divisions and he's undefeated. He has 3 wins at light heavyweight right now. 1 over a former champion. Like you can make the case. It's not stupid to say, hey, you know what? Let's pass let's go ahead and pass it on to Chris. Does anybody in middleweight touch Chris Weidman? No. He's so far ahead of everybody in that division.
We'll see. 2 weeks ago, everybody was saying that about Anderson. There was more hype for Weidman for this fight than in any other previous. But I'm not one. I never write off divisions for years and years because you always end up looking dumb by the end of it.
I'm not going to say for years and years, but I mean, who challenges Weidman realistically right now?
Everyone, look, Munoz looked great against Tim Bosch. Let's concur on that. When he fought Weidman, he had an assortment and an array of injuries and side issues and things of that nature. I'd be interested to see yes, hashtag wanking motion. That's a quality response to the argument. I have no issues with that actually because it's a good usage of it. But who knows? We poo-pooed the Chael Sonnen fight going into the Anderson. Anderson Silva's going to kill Chael Sonnen. This is fucking stupid. How did Sonnen get this title shot? He won 3 straight fights that he really wasn't supposed to. And then he beat the hell out of Anderson Silva for 23 minutes. That's something else everyone else also forgot. Anderson Silva did the same clowning shit to Chael Sonnen in the first round and got caught and put on his ass. That's how that fight started, with Chael Sonnen dropping Anderson Silva from a punch because Andy was like this with his chin in the air. That's just what he does.
And that's why I'm not going to say that he threw the fight away. He did what he did to Damian Maia. He did what he did. He did the same thing to Forrest Griffin. He did the same thing to Rich Franklin in their second fight. If you watch that fight, Rich Franklin has a high kick, a left hook, and then Rich is off balance and tries throwing a right hand. And Anderson's head movement was like this the entire time. The reason why I was able to avoid those punches because Rich Franklin, if he doubled up on that left hook, he would have knocked out Anderson Silva. I stand by that. He was just too off balance because he was awkward from the punch, and he didn't have his feet behind him.
It really was that.
Anderson has gotten away with a lot of things that aren't technical,
or as Joe Rogan would say, textbook wrong things to do.
Right,
there's a textbook that's just like, don't do this.
Like, if you go to any, Muay Thai camp in Thailand and you start doing that shit, you're getting knocked out. Clean.
Unless you're Anderson Silva. Because,
not even Anderson Silva. Because,
they're going to leg kick the shit out of you down there.
They're going to leg kick the hell out of you, and Thai fighters, they double up, they throw real combos, not...
The 1-2 is a real combo, sir. I will not sit here and let you disparage the 1-2.
That's child's play.
Uno dos, okay? It's universal. It spans countries and languages. Hey, it carried Shane Carwin to like an 11-0 record. That's the only combo and he knocked out everyone in the first round with it.
The 2 carried Shane Carwin.
But he fired the 1 first. The 1 scared the shit out of you. Oh, damn. That was Shane Carwin's career. Flaring the 1 and
knocked guys out with a 2. That's what he had.
He didn't just spam the 2 though. He's not Dan Henderson.
No, he didn't spam the 2. He just stepped in and just knocked cats out.
And it was wonderful. So you don't have to know.
It's like Chris Lieben. Chris Lieben doesn't throw the 1 carried Chris Lieben to glory.
Wait, who was that?
That was my pops.
What's up, Mr. Roth?
Hey.
One thing I want to ask you guys about, I saw a couple people. I think it was Ioli who said Silva's performance was a disgrace. I know Tim Burke on Bloody Elbow was saying that he felt
The people shouldn't have bought the fight.
he felt cheated because of he bought the pay-per-view. Do either of you feel that way? Cheated. Because I felt the same way for the Maia fight, where obviously that wasn't the greatest fight in the world, but for the first 3 rounds, I was fucking intrigued what the fuck was going on. I was entertained.
Here's the thing. I love Tim Burke. Like, one of the nicest dudes I've talked to, really nice dude, but, like, he's out of his mind. Out of his mind. Like,
it broke his heart. You can't blame a guy for being heartbroken in a bar when you've been talking about Anderson Silva all night. He's the best ever, guys. Check this out. Watch right here. And then he gets fucking planted.
He said that, he'll never buy an Anderson Silva pay-per-view again. That was the first thing he said.
And I didn't hear that.
And that the fans were the losers that night. Come on, man.
But I kind of want to talk about the rest of the show.
McKinley, do it with me. McKinley, do it with me.
This is the name of today's episode. Number whatever, #wanking motion.
I thought this was a great card, top to bottom. I mean, at least the pay-per-view portion of it.
Oh, it was amazing.
The prelims were good too.
There was one bad fight.
Well, I missed the Facebook prelims, and then I got to the bar when they were showing. It was probably in the middle of the FX stuff.
So you were there in time to see your Hodger Gracie Tim Kennedy pick.
Oh yeah. I got there for that.
Hodger
looked good in the first round.
You know who else looked good in the first round? Kimbo Slice. Against Matt Mitrio.
All right.
It means nothing.
I want to get back to Anderson and this fight because I think there's a lot to unpack here.
All right, we'll make fun of you later.
Rematch, right now, 4 books, according to Best Fight Odds, have odds in this fight, and they're kind of all over the place. Sportsbet has the best line on Anderson is -129. You can arb that, by the way, with Weidman plus 155 on Sportsbook. That's free money, assuming the fight goes off. But Sportsbook has Anderson at 129. 5 Dimes has Anderson at -135. Bovada has Anderson at -175, and then Sportsbook has Anderson at -185. Thoughts?
It'll even out by fight time.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I
would pounce on Weidman at those odds with fucking both feet. Both feet.
I'm gonna make me some more money on Weidman
as an underdog in a rematch for the title. That's Frankie Edgar territory, and I'd say that his win was slightly more decisive than Frankie's first over BJ.
No, people just can't believe that Anderson Silva can lose. Like, they just watched it, and they're like, I don't think that actually happened. There's something going on here. Aliens caused that. So
I think that gives me one advantage as far as objectivity, because I didn't fall in love with any MMA fighters when I was like 20 years old or 19 years old. I didn't watch them reign over the landscape as I grew with them and then watch them fall as I'm getting older. I don't have that. I came into the sport later, so I don't have any kind of emotional attachment to anybody that rivals what some people feel about Anderson Silva. And people that I like and respect and that I've talked to and that I enjoy and I call them friends, I can't fucking fathom how they're just emotionally unable to process that was Anderson Silva and he lost to a guy that was better than him that night.
I'm
almost happened 2 years ago.
I'm one of those guys that kind of grew up with Anderson Silva in the sport. That was the guy who, when I was getting into the sport, that was the guy I got to watch come into the UFC and just dominate everyone. That was the guy I watched and was like, that is the greatest fighter of all time. And it helps that he fights like he's in a Bruce Lee movie. But I managed to process it. So I'm kind of in the same position as you, where I'm like, why are people having such a hard time with this?
Well, then let me ask you this on behalf of all of them. Is Pride finally dead?
Pride never die.
Pride never die. Can we kill it, though? Like, how much longer until there are no Pride vets like left in mixed martial arts, even?
You still got a few years.
Vanderlei Silva's still going.
You got Vanderlei, you've got Shogun, who might outlast all the other guys.
Verdum technically is a Pride guy.
Fuck Barnett. I hope he's gone as soon as possible.
No, you got Fabricio Verdum. He's good for another 5 years.
Probably. Yeah. That's probably true. He'll probably outlast everybody. And him talking about fighting Cormier is fucking stupid. Do not risk your title shot against somebody who A, might beat you, and B, refuses to fight the champion. You need to sit on your hands and wait for your title shot, Fabricio. You've earned it.
I just kind of want to backpack on what Ian was saying. My first live UFC pay-per-view was Anderson's fight against Travis Lutter. So he's been sort of the guy that I've
He held your whittled
watched
hand
the
and ushered
most
you.
live.
Yeah.
You
did it.
Really?
Oh, speaking of ushered,
Wait.
did you watch that?
Wait, whoa. Have I been watching this longer than everybody here?
Well, I mean, I've watched the UFC since the 2001-ish, but it was like old VHS tapes, and I didn't start watching live until Pride 33, UFC 60, whatever, that Anderson fought Lutter in it.
What? I literally, and this is weird.
Bro, I didn't have money for pay-per-view when I was in high school.
No. Listen, hold on one second. I literally watched UFC 1 because my parents had a black box.
Well, of course you've been watching it longer than everyone if you fucking watch UFC 1.
Are you really ratting out your dad right now for stealing cable?
Whatever, man. That's 20 years ago. We're good.
So I got to see all the In Your Houses. I didn't have your parents be like, I'm not paying for a fucking WWF pay-per-view every month. This is bullshit. You get 4 a year.
Watch everything.
Mom, they're like $20. I don't give a shit.
We had free Playboy channel, man. It was the best.
No, it was the Spice Channel back then. That's what it was all about.
No, but
They always like to bang on boats on the Spice Channel.
Here's the other thing. I don't think black boxes exist anymore.
Well, no, it's called the internet.
Yeah.
There's really no point for them. So there's been rumors that they're going to try to get this show done, or this rematch for the New Year's show or around then. Are they looking at Cowboy Stadium for that, or are they looking at Cowboy Stadium and then sort of in that general time of the year?
So here's the thing. Cowboy Stadium texted Dana White after the fight and said, "Look, Dana."
But the actual stadium, like it has its own mind.
Yeah, here's the thing. Cowboy Stadium has been in the mix for a while. And it texted Dana White after the fight, and he goes, "Yo, Dana, I've been really deserving. I've racked up a bunch of big events. You saw that Pacquiao-Clottey event. It was huge. I think I deserve this title shot." And Dana White is like, "You're in the mix."
That was the worst thing I've ever heard.
It sent me 170 texts, and a lot of them were cursing, even though it's God-believing stadium.
Cowboy Stadium sent him a bunch of texts.
Oh, this is so dumb. Dana did say one interesting thing, though. They were talking about it for, somebody said, is it going to be for the Super Saturday card? And he said, well, the Super Bowl is going to be on Fox. Why would we want to compete with them? What the fuck are you talking about? They always try to have a huge card.
Yeah, I did not understand.
It made zero sense to me whatsoever.
The Super Bowl this upcoming year is in Giant Stadium.
Okay. That's cool.
So,
they should have it in open-air, cold stadiums.
But here's the thing. If it's going to be on Fox, you're probably already going to have some fighters out there because you have the blah with Fox. Why not hold it in New Jersey at the Prudential Center right down the road?
You get Weidman's home crowd there, which creates a great atmosphere.
Home crowd there, and do it in Jersey. You have the Super Bowl right afterwards. I bet you Fox and the UFC can figure out some big media events to do on Fuel and Fox Sports 1. I bet they can figure out something interesting for the week. And they are right in the sense that I think that this could be their biggest pay-per-view yet.
I don't know about that, but I think it'll do well.
Do it in Brazil. Have Weidman take his heart and eat it in Brazil. That's what I want to see.
Just stab him in the middle of the octagon, and then he gets stoned and quartered and beheaded.
If you do it right, they all start bowing. I read it in a book. You got to nail the pageantry.
The last thing I want to get to before we get to the topic I think you've been gearing for, Derek. People have been talking. I've seen some people. I know Dana in particular said that this fight doesn't affect Anderson's legacy. I've also seen other people say that this tarnishes it in some way. I'll start with you, Derek. Does this hurt Anderson Silva's legacy at all, or is it just sort of a guy at the end of his career that it's just a matter of time? You're gonna lose if you keep fighting long enough. What is Anderson Silva's legacy to you? Just
the greatest mixed martial artist in the history of the world.
Yep, that's clearly it.
Numero uno. Put a little hashtag right here, and then 1. That's Anderson Silva. You could make the only other guy you can even make an argument for is Fedor. That's it.
Whoa.
That's it. No, as far as length.
Wait. Time out.
Nobody else. Fedor was the best heavyweight in the world from 2003 to 2010. He reigned over a division unquestioningly for like 7 years.
What? Wait. Who? Mike? Who's this?
I don't know who this guy is.
I have never taken. I said towards the end of his career, he took the easy way out. He didn't want to go to the UFC because there were unfavorable matchups there for him. And then his clock ran out in Strikeforce as opposed to in the UFC, and that cost him money. But when he was on, he was the best, and he was the best in the world for a number of years. I've never said otherwise.
So you don't personally have George St. Pierre as part of that discussion?
I think he's there, but when you take into account not so much the Matt Serra loss, or really even the quality of his opponents, but just the longevity. I think if he does it for a couple of more years, then he's right in there at 1, 2, or 3, and then that's a debate that you can have. But he has 2 winning streaks, I think, that are like 8 or 9 fights long, whereas one guy has one that was almost 30, and the other guy has one that was 16 in the UFC. So there's a split there. That Serra loss really hurts GSP as far as that historical argument, because you can say the other guys, they didn't have a Matt Serra moment.
Well, Anderson's got 2 of those though. He's got one that's even worse. He's got the Takase fight, and he's got the Chonen fight.
Well,
the Takase fight, in retrospect, it looks even worse considering how that guy's career is going.
But it's not like Anderson was #1 best in the world going into the Takase fight or going into the Chonen fight.
He was a top guy at the time, though. I mean, he beat Maa Sakurai for the Shudo belt. I mean, he was a
he was
no one was expecting that fight to happen.
No, it was a Shudo champ.
Just for historical discussion, at that time of the Takase fight, Anderson Silva was a top 5 welterweight.
Right, but I consider the beginning of Anderson's UFC career to the end of Anderson's UFC career as the single most impressive streak in the history of mixed martial arts. Does anyone care to disagree with that?
No, I'll agree with that.
Okay, then I can consider him as a fighter from 2005 or 2006 to 2013 and consider that stretch, much like Fedor gets from 2003 to 2010, because he was undefeated until 2003, but he didn't really beat anybody worth a shit until then.
But the one asterisk that I'll put is, and the one thing that you could say, playing devil's advocate, is that yes, Fedor had fights against like Zulu, but in that same time, Anderson had fights against James Irvin and Travis Lutter and
Thomas Lattis
and Patrick Cote. So and Stephan Bonner. So
I have an argument to that though. Anderson Silva didn't fight fucking BJ Penn.
You know, like
he didn't take on Matt Lindland.
Or Zulu Zinho or Hongman Choi or guys that were fucking 1-0 freak show fights. There's really no comparison between the freak shows on Anderson. Talis Lattis was only there because he was gifted a decision against Nate Marquardt because points were deducted due to pile driver.
Fedor
it's a weird situation.
You know, Fedor fought Fujita. You can make the argument that Anderson's epic run through the UFC when he had those awesome wins, like the ones over Nate Marquardt and Rich Franklin and Dan Henderson and Vitor Belfort. Amazing wins, but the same thing could be said about Fedor with the Heath Herring one. And
like I said, he's the only person that it's even a debate. He's the only person other than Anderson that you could possibly put as #1. As far as the legacy question, which is what spurned this, it's unimaginable to me. It's like a parody. You could, like, if you were making up, like, writing like a joke post about how shitty MMA fans are, and you made like a fake shirt dog for him. Anderson Silva's been exposed. UFC has to stop feeding him cans. He never really was that good. And then it actually happens in front of your very eyes by people who aren't joking. And I don't understand it at all. Like, Anderson Silva is on the Mount Rushmore, and he was there 4 years ago.
Okay. So to kind of transition this a little bit, where do you put him pound for pound?
The rankings debate that we all were waiting.
Yeah, and I tweeted this, and Mike was kind enough to retweet it. This idea that Weidman is the champion of Anderson Silva at middleweight, 185 pounds, and yet a pound of Anderson Silva is still better than a pound of Chris Weidman. It's a fantastic distillation of everything that's wrong with the MMA media. The idea that you can say, well, I do my pound for pound more on historical accomplishments, and I give the little guys I have Ronda on my pound for pound. Like, just shut the fuck up. It's a made-up bullshit category to begin with, so you can't really make any rules about it, but at least be consistent. If you have Silva over Weidman on your pound for pound list, you are saying there is nothing that Weidman could have done on Saturday night to pass Anderson Silva. Could have shot him in the face with a gun. He could be dead right now. I'd still have him on there pound for pound because of the last 5 years. It's fucking ridiculous.
But that's not what pound for pound is. Pound for pound is basically power rankings.
That's not how I've ever looked at it.
No.
Yes,
pound for pound for me.
That's exactly what pound for pound has always been. It's always been power. It's always been power rankings. It's always been the same standards as the BCS. That's how it's looked at. Is if the number 20 is Chris Weidman wasn't ranked on the pound for pound.
No, what Ian says here in the chat, it's always interpreted as skill. Like, if you could just make all these guys neutral in weight and they just had their skills against each other, who do you think would be the best? That's what a lot of people interpret as pound for pound as. That's why a lot of people have Mighty Mouse high up there.
For me, it's always been it's always been a what's it called? It's always been a power rankings. That's really what it is.
You're weird, Matt. You're an odd person.
It's an absolute division power rankings where, and by absolute division I mean that there's no. Yes, it is who I like best.
But you're an odd bird, Matt. Where's Ronda on your power rankings?
McKinley, under that logic, I would have Chris Weidman above Anderson Silva, and I don't. I like Chris more than Anderson Silva. To me, power rankings, pound for pound is power rankings. It's if you take all divisions away and you're just doing the 10 best fighters in MMA.
Pound for pound for me, as I've always interpreted it, is the ranking of the best fighters across divisions as related to their divisional dominance. And Chris Weidman beating Anderson Silva.
So all three of us have different definitions. That's wonderful.
Right, but that also shows the problem with pound for pound.
It's stupid.
Well, one thing I think we can all agree on is that anyone ranking Anderson Silva number 1 pound for pound at this point is out of their mind.
Insane.
Stupid.
Insane.
And the thing is, it wasn't an isolated thing. If you go to UFC.com/rankings and you look at, you can look at each individual ballot, which I must commend them for making those available. There are, it's a non-zero number of rankers who have Anderson Silva number 1 pound for pound. Absolutely insane.
I'm glad. I don't even know why the UFC has a pound for pound rankings list. That just doesn't make any sense.
Well, it gives them a number that they can bring up.
But they never do. You never see. They never say he's the champion and the number 6 pound for pound fighter. Because they're not going to do that.
But they can, and they can also say he's one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world, and then point to the rankings if they need to. Hashtag ranking
That's
emotion.
what I fucking feel about that.
But here's the thing. The issue that I had with the rankings, and I applaud the UFC again for making them public. I think that the transparency is nice, just because you're able to actually call out the media that completely botched it. I mean, I don't want to name names. Mike will probably name names. And
I actually don't have the names. I forgot all of them.
Heidi Fang. I don't know.
Heidi Fang. There you go.
Heidi Fang.
There we go. So Heidi Fang on Twitter, she was defending her rankings, and she said that 17 wins in a low, 1 loss. It doesn't make him not number 1 pound for pound. And then Mike actually said, "Well, so you probably still have him, or was it McKinley? You still?"
No, I said you probably voted him as middleweight champ.
As middleweight champion, and she said, "I did." Like,
I think she was misunderstanding what the fuck I was talking. I don't think she understood that I was joking with her.
But
maybe she's
the
just
funny
an
thing
idiot.
is, after
Maybe she's just an idiot.
Could be that too.
But after the event, if you actually check the rankings, like immediately afterwards, it said Chris Weidman interim champion.
That's so weird.
Conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory.
I'm not even going to start with that.
MMA media.
Fuck Sports Illustrated, by the way. Actually put up an article and a video. Was Anderson Silva's win in the UFC fixed?
That's straight up libelous, by the way.
It really is. It's well, if you put a question mark after it, would you
No, not the article. The article title. I'm saying what was said in that video was straight up libelous. One, how are you gonna? I know Sports Illustrated has a fact-checking department. I worked at Maxim Magazine, and we had a fact-checking department. This is what you have.
What is it? What is it? You can't say that about tits. What do you fucking run by the fact-checker at Maxim?
Like you need to know that certain things that you write in a movie review actually happened, or
You have to watch the movie, asshole. There you go.
Like you need to run stuff by a fact checker, and I know Sports Illustrated has it. And the one thing that really bothered me is that one guy said something like, as far as I know, they MMA, the UFC is not as regulated as boxing, and it's like get Jeff Dragonheim to on this thing. Get Loretta Hunt to Skype in.
To be fair, technically that's true, because technically with the Ali Act, boxing is more regulated. But yeah, hashtag linking motion. I agree. I'm just pointing out that is technically an accurate statement.
This is dumb.
Yeah, this is dumb.
Let's talk about more fights on the card. Let's talk about your Roger Gracie pick. What happened there? You and the vast majority of the staff at Bloody Elbow and a bunch of other idiots picked Roger Gracie to win a high-level MMA fight against a very competent, well-rounded opponent. And I don't know what was going through your head at the time.
I guess he looked good in round one, and then he looked like he just gassed out. And yes, he did.
He got out-grappled.
Yes, he did.
He got out-grappled, Mike. He got out-grappled. He would have lost on points.
Excuse me?
He would have lost on points, and that was a grappling match.
He's talking about BJJ points.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't a BJJ match, Derek.
Even if it was, he would have lost. That's what I'm saying.
But they don't all punches, so they would have disqualified both of them.
It was well, I don't know. Hodger probably would have gotten away with it for doing an ass out of punch. You're fine. He just tried to slap him.
All right, you know who I was most impressed with? I mean, besides Cub Swanson, who I was already sort of impressed with, Mark Munoz really impressed me with the show. Mostly with his ground and pound of the body on Boach, which
not unprecedented. Landed the same thing on Maia. Everyone forgets that fight. He beat the shit out of Maia on the ground in the second round of that fight. Pounded his guts just like he did Bosch.
But Mark Munoz also is more ripped than he's ever been.
Yeah. Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Are you trying to say something?
Conspiracy theory.
Are you saying he looked a little juicy?
Conspiracy theory.
You was chewing some juicy fruit on the way in? Is that what you're saying?
Conspiracy theory.
Here's the thing.
I know it didn't happen by eating balut and lumpia.
You bastard. I hate you so much. But I'm glad you brought up Munoz and Swanson, because I kind of want to talk about their opponents a little bit. The reason I thought they looked good is because they both had really competent and really active in their opponents, guys who looked like they were trying to win the fight and looked good even in a loss. I thought Dennis Seaver acquitted. Seaver, god damn it. I thought he acquitted himself really, really well in that fight. Another guy who looked really good in the first round, appeared to gas, but not nearly to the extent as your boy did. And then you have Tim Bosch, who really almost out-wrestled Mark Munoz for the first round. Like, arguably won the round, got a couple of takedowns, was able to fend him off, but Munoz's pace/gas tank was enough to overcome. But neither one of those guys are looking as good as they do today if their opponents don't give them a fight like they did on Saturday. So it was good matchmaking. Everybody showed up to fight. And even the guys who lost, I want to see them fight again, too, because I think that both Seaver and Bosch are both legitimate top 10 guys, and I think that they give anybody up and coming or on their way down a good fight.
Yeah, Mark Munoz also asked for a title shot.
So did Michael Bisping, which is even funnier. You don't get to cut Vitor Belfort in line, stupid. It's not how it works.
Yes, you do. Vitor
he kicked him in the face, and then he kicked Luke Rockhold in the face. Vitor's clearly got the number one argument for it, but they can't have the fight in Vegas, so...
And Weidman would be insane to do that in Brazil.
Oh, but I think he's got balls enough to do it, though.
I don't think the UFC would make that. I mean, if the Testostosaurus Rex actually won the title, he'd never be able to defend it. You know.
I do think they would consider having the Silva rematch in Brazil, though, if he wanted it, and I think they could sell out a stadium to do that.
That'd be amazing.
What, the Weidman?
Weidman Silva 2, I think, could sell out 60,000, 70,000 seats in Brazil.
Of course, but there was no way that they're giving a title shot to Vitor Belfort.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of, why would they set him up against Luke Rockhold unless that maybe they thought they'd just give Rockhold a win, and if not, Belfort's just a gatekeeper. But if Andy really doesn't want it, then like it's like Munoz or bust, I guess. Who else would you give it to?
Costa Philippou.
Who's he fighting next?
I don't know.
Who gives a fuck? Do either of you want to say anything about Edgar and Oliveira? I thought
Yeah, Frankie Edgar is still my dog.
Yeah, Frankie's still awesome. That fight pretty much went how I expected, where Oliveira put up a pretty good fight for Frankie. Frankie pretty much acquitted himself throughout the whole fight, but I thought Oliveira, fought well in a loss.
You know what surprised
Frankie
me?
still looks small. That's what surprised me, but go ahead, Ian. Frankie still looks all 145.
Frankie still looks like he can make 135.
Ridiculous.
What surprised me is that wasn't a split decision. Not
Really?
because the fight should have been a split decision, but because Frank Edgar was in it.
I mean, there was a 29-28 in there that I was sort of surprised about.
Yeah, I thought Frankie won all 3 rounds as well. I think the third was probably the most definitive, and obviously when you're used to fighting 25 minutes for years, and then you get to go out there and explode in the third round, it showed a difference. And I hope that he gets at least one more fight before they talk about, I'm down for an Aldo rematch. I don't mind that at all, but I'd like to see Edgar Mendez. I think that's the fight to make right now, and I think it'd be awesome.
I think it kind of proved that Edgar does fight to the level of his opposition. Because no offense to Oliveira, but that's if you look at the Edgar that took Jose Aldo to was a split decision or a really close unanimous decision, and then look at the one who got a decision against Oliveira, it's like that guy should be smashing Oliveira.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that Oliveira that was definitely the best Oliveira that we saw. At least with the best gas tank that he had. He usually gasses out after the first, and he was able to at least sort of hang with Frankie. The question with me with Frankie is that he still gets tagged, and he got tagged by people that by a guy that doesn't do stand up.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that I was sort of nervous about for Frankie in terms of how it could, or if he would lose this fight. It's because he gets hit a lot, and he gets hit a lot more than he should. Derek, that Frankie Chad Mendes fight really reminds me a lot of Frankie and Sean Shirk, like a better version of Sean Shirk at 145.
It's not a bad comparison. You know how much of an affinity I have for Sean Shirk. I'm really just stuck on my Edgar Mendez matchmaking. I think that's a fantastic #1 contenders bout. It's sad because we talk about Korean Zombie, we talk about Lamas. 145's been all bunched up forever. Even Pettis' name is still floating around.
You got Swanson in there now.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, I think that Mendez probably beats every single one of those guys. Mendez Swanson would be a hell of a
beats Frankie.
I think that's probably the toughest fight for Mendez because I can see Frankie decisioning him, especially if it's not a main event, which it won't be.
Well, that's the one thing I'd be worried about. I would almost want that fight. I mean, I guess at this point you're talking Fox Sport 1. I would want that as a main event on one of those shows because I think that is a fight that's a fight that absolutely needs to go 5 rounds. Absolutely.
Well, that's because you want to be the commissioner of 5-round fights. You want to be the 5-round fight czar.
Especially if you're
a 5-round fight.
If you're talking about that as a title eliminator, I think, especially with those two guys that are definitely the number 2, number 3 in that division.
Well, they're not definitely number 2, number 3 because you got Lamas and you've got a couple other guys that could arguably make that. Oh, you really? Well, what has Mendez done since losing to Aldo? I
think 145. There's a lot of guys right behind Jose that have a great argument between 2 and 5, but I think Edgar and Mendez are the 2 guys right there.
I think you can make that match. I'm still looking forward to the Korean Zombie fight. I hope Zombie at least impresses in that he doesn't get absolutely nuked. The betting lines are just disgusting for that fight. Nobody's giving him a prayer.
All right, guys, I got some breaking news for you.
What?
In a
Brian Stan's retired?
In a heroic decision, Brian Stan is retired from the sport of mixed martial arts.
You can't schedule.
Thank God you delayed it. You delayed breaking that news till this show.
You can't schedule breaking news. It's not how breaking news works.
Well, I also wanted to give it. I wanted to give it 45 minutes into the show, really let it simmer, and then kind of bust it out for you guys.
Derek, are you sure? Because I mean, if you've watched E60 and 60 Minutes, they break news all the time, and those are taped.
Totally, yeah. They're explicitly news-breaking shows that break news as it's live and happening. Also, the subject matter today, somebody retiring from the sport, totally get the 60 Minutes analogy now. Makes a ton of sense. Absolutely get it. I just fucking don't understand it at all. Why is everyone waving?
Because I just saw Ian pop up on video, so I wanted to wave at him.
Oh, okay. Well, Matt started waving back at you like a moron. Yeah, we're doing this now. No, he's not. He's not doing it to you, Smiley. No.
Before you go any further, Jay, I want to give you guys a quiz. Brian Stan's best victory.
Alessio Sakara.
The War on Terror.
Doug Marshall.
Chris Lieben.
So I heard Alessio Sakaro. I heard not Steve Cantwell, Doug Marshall. I heard Chris Lieben.
You didn't hear the War on Terror?
The answer is Chris Lieben,
The War on Terror.
unless maybe you're a Jorge Santiago fan.
There's also Jorge Santiago. I just don't understand why this retirement. Stan's he was a solid fighter. He had a great. He's done well in the broadcast booth. He's going to be doing college football now. But why is this getting any more attention than just a small mention? In a tweet. Because guns.
Because guns. Because he was in the army. That's why.
Because he was one of the good guys of MMA. Like he wasn't an asshole to anybody. He was respectful. He did really good interviews. He was a good guy. So I think that they're treating it, like the day that Jorge Santiago decides to hang it up, nobody's going to care.
Look at when Dwayne Ludwig retired. Dwayne Ludwig, I can't say his fucking name. God damn it. He fulfills all of those criteria as well, and he didn't get a fucking breaking special on anyone's show.
I mean, it's because Brian Stan's been a really good guy, and he's kind of he's more well known than Dwayne Ludwig. The one thing that's going to bother me is that we're gonna start seeing people talk about Brian Stan's legacy. Brian Stan doesn't have a legacy, at least not in mixed martial arts. He has a legacy in the army, in the military. He has a legacy there as a Silver Star recipient. But his mixed martial arts legacy is he's a 12-6 fighter who won a belt in a division that was basically regional, and then retired when he was out of the top 10.
See, this is one of these things where
that's his entire legacy. The cool thing is that he was smart about how he was handling his career. He never he was a full-time fighter with a full-time job. And he's retiring with his brain still intact, so he's going to be able to remember all of his entire life, as opposed to somebody like Chris Lieben, who I don't know him, but I'd be.
Let me put my doctor's hat on. Let me put my spindle on. We're gonna get the diagnosis here.
Right, but no, sure.
What's he got, Doc?
It's not diagnosing. Pugilistic dementia is a very real thing. And
diagnosed by a professional who examines the patient. Yes, it is. It's an actual condition.
So I would say Chris Lieben is a better candidate for having pugilistic dementia than Brian Stan, based on the damage he's taken in his career.
That's probably true, but we were having this discussion a little bit before the show. Brian Stan was smarter than Chris Lieben when they were both 20 years old, and neither of them had been punched in the head either. Brian Stan was like an all-star student, athlete, coming out of college. I have this, and I'm going to take about 2 minutes, and I'm going to read it. This is from the Marines official website. Stan was with the 2nd Mobile Assault Platoon leader with Weapons Company, where everything started happening during the operation. From May 18th to 14th, or 8th to 14th, 2005, Stan led his men into battle, where their mission was to seize a bridge near Karabila, Iraq. 3 different times he negotiated 4 kilometers to maintain their position from enemy attacks. However, on the 3rd time through, the enemy had set up an ambush for the Marines. Although ambushed, Stan called in close air support and direct fire from tanks while taking on over 30 rocket-propelled grenade attacks, multiple machine guns firing, and improvised explosive devices detonating. 360-degree fight, and was setting up casualty evacuation points after they were hit by suicide IEDs. Guy actually saw suicide bombers coming at him, trying to blow him and his dudes up, and still held his shit together. That's why people give a shit about Brian Stan, especially his colleagues in the booth when he's calling fights and doing the pre and post-fight stuff, and that includes Ariel Helwani. So that's a perfectly reasonable, excuse for having a special edition of the show to hype the retirement and thank him for everything and wish him luck and say, we hope to see you around. But to schedule it as breaking news and then say, I don't have anything else to say about it, I'll break the news tomorrow, that's fucking stupid. You could just say, we have a special announcement, we're going to have a special episode, something like that, but you don't call it breaking news when you're going to sit on it for a day.
Let's be honest, who else in here wishes it was some asshole that got this treatment so we could just rip the ass out of it? Be honest.
I don't think your everyday asshole gets this treatment. That's the point. I think that Brian Stan actually has a genuine effect on the people that he works with, and that this was just a function of that.
One last thing. the other sort of mind-blowing thing to me was this Kevin Iole article on Yahoo. The headline of the article is Brian Stan's UFC retirement is yet another heroic act, and it basically talks about how Stan got out of the sport because his health was at risk, and after getting knocked out by Vanderlei Silva, he didn't want to potentially put himself in danger with regards to his 3 kids, and which is all great, and it's great that he's been able to springboard his career from fighting to broadcasting. The thing that I find just absolutely insane about this article, though, is that a lot of guys get into fighting because they don't have other options. They weren't good in school. They didn't have other talents. They're fighting because they need to make a living.
And to that point, I have one question really for Kevin Iole, and it's, Brian Stan retired because he got melted by a guy who generates a lot of concern vis-a-vis him continuing to fight and having continued issues down the road with his health. People wanted Vanderlei Silva to retire before that fight. They thought he was going to die in that fight. He was given no prayer in that fight. So if Brian Stan's a hero for retiring to save himself from future damage, what does that make Vanderlei Silva, who knocked his ass out of the sport? Because if that hadn't happened, Brian Stan would still be fighting, and he admitted as much in his post. He said in his explanation for it, I was a top 10 fighter. Now I've lost 2 straight. It's going to be a lot of work. I'm going to have to retool myself, reinvent myself to get back into the top 10, and it's just not worth it. And that's a completely legitimate decision, but to call it heroic is a bastardization of the term.
I think that it's it's a bad. He shouldn't have said it was heroic, but I mean, and Stan admitted that if he beat Vanderlei Silva, he'd still be fighting. So I mean, it's not even like this is a heroic decision. It's a smart decision. That's what it is. It's a very nice to see a fighter retire when he has the when he before it's too late.
Yeah, and I think that's the story here, is that it's great that Brian Stan was able to get out because he had these other things lined up. But if Stan didn't have this Fox deal broadcasting UFC fights, if he didn't pick up this deal broadcasting ACC football, would he be retiring? He might be a guy that has enough of a background that he could be successful outside of fighting, but a lot of guys don't have that. And you see guys like leave and fight because they have to, because they don't have any other way of making an income to get themselves.
And frankly, they should get one. And every other pro athlete that's not making $4 or $5 million a year should do that too. It's hard to retire when you're 35 and never ever work again. People are living for a long time. Kids cost money. Wives cost money. You need to be able to generate income without beating people up and getting beaten up in return. And that's true for every fighter. You have a guy like Brian Stan, who was a legitimate top 10 fighter. A lot of people picked him going into the Bisping fight, thought his knockout power would be enough. He could catch Bisping once. I was one of those stupid people. And he was doing that all while maintaining full-time work and volunteering with higher heroes to fucking help them find jobs for veterans.
Not volunteering. He that's his foundation.
Okay. I guarantee he's putting more than 40 hours a week in it.
Oh no. Brian Stan, his schedule is insane. He owns commercial real estate properties. His commercial real estate management company that he owns. He has a bunch of companies properties that he owns. He has Hire Heroes, which is an amazing charity. Like my friend came back from Iraq, Marine, and he got a job through Hire Heroes. And so it's an amazing charity.
And did all that while being a professional mixed martial artist.
While being a professional
fighter.
And that goes back to what Dana said at the post-fight presser. It's like what he said is this really this isn't a full-time job.
No.
You don't just go to training and you train 8 hours from 9 to 5 every single day and
we talked about this either last week or the week before with the Chael Sonnen interview from a couple years back, where he said, "Look, if you bust your ass in training, you're in there 3-4 hours a day." That's it.
Mike, when you go to jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, 3 hours. Maybe if you're a professional, you're adding another hour and a half for
cardio,
and or sparring. But you're not so it's 5 hours. There's a lot of time in the day for that. It's not a full-time job, and Brian Stan was smart enough to recognize it. A guy that I think that you need to be worried about, that made money in the sport, that I think you need to be worried about, is a guy like Josh Koscheck, because Josh Koscheck is going out and buying planes. Like,
well, I heard recently that was not his plane, that he was borrowing that for the show.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's still like he owns Ferraris and all this shit. It's like, look, dude, like your money runs out. Like if you watch, like if you're a fan of like the ESPN 30 for 30 documentaries, watch the one called Broke. It's amazing.
And
like,
these are guys that have made 10 times. I mean, how much money did that guy who played for the Celtics?
how much money did Latrell Sprewell make?
$40-50 million at least.
He made over $100 million.
It doesn't matter how much money you give to a guy who doesn't know how to manage
contract for $14 million, saying I have the family to feed. Like,
hey, Sean Kemp could legitimately make that argument, but pretty much any other basketball player.
But no, he actually does have a family to feed. But here's the thing, like MMA fighters aren't making that. Like John Jones, if he makes super fights and for forever, for the rest, and he keeps fighting, he's 25 now, and he keeps fighting till he's 35. He may break like $30 million in purses. Maybe $40 million in purses.
And the key word there is in purses, because there's been a lot of talk like, oh, Anderson Silva only made $400,000 this weekend. How much do you think fucking Nike paid him? How much do you think these top-line sponsors are paying these top-line athletes on top of what they make for the show? If you saw Anderson Silva's
banner, Nike, Burger King, Wizard, I don't know what that is, and then Vicks. Like those are big sponsors.
Anderson probably made about 1.5 million just in pay-per-view points on that as well, if it done 800,000 buys.
Plus the pay-per-view points.
You don't feel bad for him. You don't need to feel bad for him.
You can't. Like, Anderson Silva probably walked away from this fight, all things considered, low end probably $3.5 million.
Yeah. But take out his food and shelter out of that, Matt. You got to take these things into account.
Well, I don't want to get into this fucking fighter pay.
Yes, you do, because you don't. Because
the issue with fighter pay isn't necessarily that Anderson is broke on $3 million. Is that a fair share of the total revenue of the UFC?
Guys like John Cholish who are making 6 and 6 and thinking that you're a full-time fighter. John Cholish obviously has a career and he's a stockbroker and whatever, but like he's complaining that like that they should have paid me more. I was only making 6 and 6. Like.
How much did you make for them? And to answer your question,
everybody should have another job. If you're an MMA fighter, if you're a baseball fan, back like Sandy Koufax had a summer job, like had a job in between seasons. Like the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers lived in Brooklyn and they worked in Brooklyn in between seasons.
Did the Brooklyn Dodgers make $100 million a year in profit?
Sandy Koufax played for the Los Angeles
back then,
Dodgers.
Yes, they did.
Sandy Koufax played for the LA Dodgers, if I remember correctly, after they moved in the 60s.
The Dodgers did make $100 million in profit.
But let's go back to Mike's original question, which was, he said, it's not a question of whether or not Anderson's broke on $3 million. It's a question of whether or not that's a fair share. Absolutely not. He should be getting way more. Absolutely not, because Anderson Silva subsidized that whole fucking card. Nobody bought that card to see Cub Swanson. Maybe 20,000 people.
Let me put it
bought that card to see any of the prelims.
No, hang on. I hear this a lot, and I want to make an argument here, okay? You've got Anderson Silva against Chris Weidman, right? It's $50 for the pay-per-view. Say that's the only fight on the card. Would you still pay $50 for that pay-per-view? If you only get one fight, if you only get 8 minutes of fighting, would you still pay $50 for that pay-per-view?
If it's boxing, they expect $75 for one fight. That's how every other sport does it.
But would you pay it?
Probably. I don't pay for it anyway.
I was like, Derek doesn't pay for shit anyway.
I go to the bar and watch it because it's cheaper. But the bar would
still order it. I probably directed that at the wrong person.
Here's the question to ask. Would the bar still do it? And the bar would absolutely do it because it turns people out and people want to fucking watch it. And that's the only fight they give a shit about on the card, especially the bar crowd. They don't even know who the opponent is half.
You lose at least a quarter of your pay-per-view buys if you only had like one fight a card.
Okay, but then how much do you cut? If you cut your payroll at half, then that's fine.
Ian, and when you because Scotland and Europe that they have different TV deals. Is it pay-per-view in Scotland or is it?
We pay a monthly fee.
Okay, but what's the monthly fee?
Monthly fee is just under $20.
Okay, so it's still cheaper. So like you're not going to the bar to go, like not many people are going to the pub to go watch fights.
No one is. So until late.
Okay. All right.
No, I don't think they lose a lot of ESPN viewers either, because everyone who's watching it on ESPN in the UK, they're watching it for Anderson Silva. They don't give a fuck about it. They're not going to not watch it because they don't get to see it.
In the U.S., the bar crowd is a huge thing, to the point where they've been trying to price it out. Where like the UFC has been raising the price that the bars have to pay in order to show these fights, because they'd rather have people buy it at home and have a viewing party, because 5 people paying $60 works out more than the bar paying whatever they're paying.
Here's the thing. Do you know how much it would cost? How many pay-per-view buys the entire undercard needs to account for on a UFC pay-per-view to pay for itself? Make a guess. How many buys?
What do you mean?
I mean, how many buys do you think it would take to pay the entire undercard on a UFC pay-per-view?
That's unfair, because you're just doing their pay. You have to rent the arena. You have to do their medicals. You have to pay for the licensing. You have to hold the event, and they don't pay for that. The main card does.
Renting the arena isn't really...
Yeah, that's like 35 grand.
How about taxes? How about filling up the seats? How about getting them to do the promos?
The one thing, and it's been brought up a lot of times, is that they have they have to rent out the arena. Like, I can tell you this by like my personal knowledge. A lot of the times they're getting site fees. Like the Revel, when they hosted World Series of Poker, not World Series of Poker, World Series of Fighting, they paid them a site fee to bring the fight to the Revel.
That's a piece of shit arena. That's a teeny tiny little venue.
You know how much it costs to rent the MGM Grand? Like if you want it for your bar mitzvah or something, it's 35 grand. That's it. It's 35 grand to rent the MGM Grand for a night. The arena.
How about to pay the doctors that are on site? How about to pay the fucking athletic commission? How about to pay the taxes on the event? The undercard is like the WNBA to the main card's NBA. It does not exist without the other, and it is completely and wholly subsidized by the people that are actually generating revenue for the company.
It works out that you can't have a main event without an undercard. It works both ways. You can't just swing it one way.
Do you think the fucking Golden Boy they're investing in like the lower levels, the grassroots of boxing? No, they let everyone else handle that shit, and then they pluck who they want and say, we'll pay you a bunch of money to fight this guy, and we'll pay him 10 times as much as you, because they're the ones everyone's paying to see.
Which the UFC can't do, because they keep fucking buying out or shutting down the people who are doing that shit.
No, they don't. They only do it when they compete with them for free agents, and that's a fucking death note. They don't give a shit about Ring of Fire. They don't care about King of the Cage. They don't care about a million regional organizations. It's only the ones that fuck with them over talent. Strikeforce, they loved until they signed Fedor. They had no issues with Strikeforce. It's silly. And they don't want to be the AAA, AA, and single A of MMA. They don't want to do it. They want everybody else to handle that, and you just say, look, when they get good enough, we're going to take them, and we don't want any shit from you, because we're going to pay them more money than you could ever hope to.
But they're not doing that just now. They're paying them 6 and 6. Like, the bottom 200 guys in the card make less than 20 grand a fight.
Yeah, how much do you think they're making on the regional circuit to headline?
Not much less. To headline, they're making more.
Why do you think
they're making more than 6?
Do you think they go to the UFC? Do you think they go to the UFC to take a fucking pay cut? They make less money in the UFC than they did at their last job? You're nuts. This is insane.
Ian.
This is nuts. They make more in endorsements in their first UFC fight than they made in any fight in their career before their UFC debut.
Leslie, you tell me headlining World Series of Fighting pays less than a Facebook prelim.
I can tell you for a fact.
I am telling you that for a fact.
I can tell you for a fact that the regional shows don't pay 6 and 6.
A friend of mine is co-headlining an event in the Magnus Arena in Denver called Prize Fighting Championships. They just signed Shane Carwin to be their president and matchmaker and spokesperson. He's making $800 to show, $800 to win. Co-main event.
World Series of Fighting pays 16 and 16.
For their fucking nobodies? For their prelims?
For the headlines. That's you said headlines.
That's not a no, when we're talking regional, we mean Legacy Fighting
Championships. Not on NBC Sports.
Then I
don't have a clue.
By your same definition, Bellator is also regional.
Yeah. And FYI, World Series of Fighting is going to go out of business here in about 6 months, so good for them on their salary structure. You can't do it.
All right.
Can we talk about?
It's past 8. I'm done.
Hold on.
We can talk about anything, but we're running long, and I'll just keep talking. So
Can
someone
we talk about just one more thing, Matt? You kind of brought it up with me earlier.
Right.
The Invicta show on Saturday. I think it's Saturday. The only two things.
27 buys.
Yeah, the only two things I want to talk about is it's going to be on actual pay-per-view. It's going to be $15. How many people are buying this motherfucker?
27. 5?
McKinley's saying 5, or he's just holding his hand up.
He might just be waving.
Derek?
I don't
The
know.
red pill or the blue pill?
I don't have a number for this, but I made Ian leave, so that's cool. He's probably gonna go pull up some numbers to recover from getting his ass kicked there.
And there's no betting odds yet, but the last thing we'll talk about, Cyborg, Marlos, Coenen. Any chance Marlos can pull this off?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No. Marlos Coenen is capable of beating, Roxanne Modafferi, who I love, but she's not capable of beating Cyborg Santos.
Yes, you can.
You have a crush on Marlos Coenen. It's okay.
No, man.
She's a beautiful woman. She's a beautiful woman.
Her.
She's got great eyes.
I'm just rolling the dice here, man. I'm already the hot shot, dick swinging guy who picked Weidman over Silva on this show. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna say that Marlos Coenen is gonna beat Chris Cyborg.
That's funny. I didn't know she was from New Jersey.
Ooh. I didn't know Chris Weidman was either.
Yeah. Fuck you, Long Island. They might have, New York would send it back if they could. Just call it.
The one thing that I'm honestly looking forward to with this Invicta show is that Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer report with the his approximations for pay-per-view buys, and it's not going to be approximation. It's just going to be specific, and it's going to be Invicta did 14 buys.
Yeah, Derek, I'm gonna ask you, since Matt seems convinced on this 27. Over under 5 figures.
Over on that's okay. So 10,000 to 99,999. That's just off the table. That's where we can't fucking keep that. I can't push on 5 figures.
All right, fucking 9999.5.
Oh, way under. It's not gonna do 100,000. Are you insane?
It may. You know what it might
that
do?
was 4 nines, Derek.
It might be Gamma Pit fighting numbers.
It'll do between 10 and 100,000.
Oh, well, fucking thanks for narrowing it for us.
Well, you're the one who gave me that range. Over under 5 figures. So is it 4 figures or 6 figures? That's a shitty job of gambling.
Mike, my honest prediction is it'll be between 5 and 15,000.
I'll put it at 30. I'll be nice, because I think there are some WMMA fans out there, and I think they'll tune in and turn out.
All right, Matt, you want to give us your final thoughts before we head out of here?
Who was the winner? Who is right? Who was right? Matt was right. I was right. I love you.
Derek?
Hey, well, you picked... No, don't do that. This is atrocious.
And now, the new UFC middleweight champion of the world, Roth.
You know who I feel sorry for as far as pay goes? Me. I feel sorry for me.
All right, we'll see you guys all next week.
Bye, guys.
Later.